conflict, villains, plot twist. All of these elements make Game of Thrones, Poldarks, and other dramatic series just something you have to turn into all the time. But in family history, do we always have conflict, villains, and plot twists? Some of you said yes, but the vast majority of you said no. So how do we write a family history? And it's not boring. Howdy, I'm Devon Noel Lee, and this is Family History Fanatics. Regardless of it's National Family History Writing Month, NaNoWriMo, or any month in between, you can write about your ancestors. But you don't have to write something that's entirely boring, even if your dad or grandpa or great-grandpa was just a farmer in some rural town in the middle of nowhere. I'm going to tell you one technique that can help add a little spice to your story, and it's really not that hard. I recently completed the proof copy of my book, Papa, The Life of Lewis Brown. And in this book, he was a milkman, but he's my milkman. He's my granddad. But I could have just done a register style writing and just include the dry facts and maybe a few family stories and photos and call it interesting. But I wanted to do something that would bring to life to the man who died when I was a baby, so that my other cousin, who is 20 years younger than me, so she never knew him, and my nieces and great nieces and so on will know about Papa. I borrowed a technique that is often used by screenwriters, and that is to have parallel storylines. Parallel storylines basically start with two characters, and they follow similar tracks until at some point they intersect. But you know what's really great about family history? Well, we don't need to follow necessarily another character or another relative, because sometimes the intersection really isn't all that great or dramatic, but you may find histories of a town, history of technology, history of activities and places and things that impacted the life of your ancestor, and you can write a story that way. So let's go back to this book, Papa, the story of Lewis Brown. Papa was born in 1918, and you know what's really cool? In 1918, the famous Ohio State University football stadium that's shaped in a horseshoe, so Horseshoe Stadium, was beginning to be built the year he was born. Now, some of you may not think that's all that interesting, but I found that fantastic because Grandpa loved Ohio State football, the Buckeyes. He was an usher in that stadium, and he also listened to the games when he had to work on the Saturdays driving, delivering milk to people's houses. When it was a game, he'd have to drive and he'd listen to it on the radio. So to find out this famous stadium was starting to be built the year he was born, I knew I had a parallel storyline. So I talked about Grandpa being born, but then I established a time and place in Ohio because he's from Columbus, Ohio, and added this parallel story of the construction of the stadium. And then throughout his life, I would refer back to how many seats the stadium was able to fill, who was the coach, who were the Heisman Trophy winners, did they have a successful season, did they beat Michigan, and so on and so forth. So at the key critical moments in Lewis's life, I said what was going on with the team and the stadium. Well, my grandpa died in 1978. He had lived through all the years of Woody Hayes. Now, if you're a Buckeye fan or just a football fan, Woody Hayes is a big name. He's a legend in football, especially Buckeye football. So Grandpa lived for all the years of Woody Hayes' life. But that last season of Woody Hayes, yeah, he tanked miserably. Or at least that's according to the newspaper reports. I wasn't really cognitive the year he was no longer going to be coach for the Buckeyes. But you know what? Grandpa wasn't even there either. Grandpa had died in September of Woody Hayes' final season. So I wrapped up the parallel storyline of my grandpa dying, and he died before the beloved Ohio State football coach's career came to an end. He didn't live to see it. Pretty cool. So what can you do to add a little drama to your family histories, find the little technology or interest or the growth of a city that follows a parallel storyline of your ancestor. It's really fun and it can be very effective. Do you have other tips of how you can make a family history a little more interesting? Share them in the comments below. And if you're participating in Family History Writing Month or NaNoWriMo, best of luck to you. If you like this video, be sure to press the red thumbs up so that this video will reach more viewers. Check out our website, familyhistoryfanatics.com, so you can be informed of upcoming e-conferences.